And we're live. Welcome to a midday show Wednesday. This is Neil Long, and I'm excited to talk to our guest today. Very, very excited, and I'm sure soon we're going to be seeing her. I'll be seeing her in the green room, and I'm going to bring her straight on. It's all about well-being today, and we could all do with a bit more of that. And I've got some really good questions to ask her because I think we need more well-being. We talk about it quite a lot on the show. Mental health, well-being, obviously very, very connected. We talk about sympathetic nervous system, parasympathetic nervous system, which is the sciencey way of saying stressed or not, stress mode or healing mode. I think an awful lot of us spend an awful lot of time in stress mode, and we're going to be talking about what we can do about that. Maybe it's just some simple hacks. Maybe, as the late great Michael Mosley used to say, just one thing. Anyway, so welcome to the show. I'm just waiting for our guest to turn up. I can tell you who it is. We've got a lovely lady called Louise Bowditch, and she is going to be on in just a moment. I'm just going to send her a little message now just to make sure she knows what to do. There we go. Because I find myself, I'm better now, but so overwhelmed and busy in my head, I wouldn't be getting very much done, and it would annoy me. And then I try even harder to get even more done, which still didn't work, and it just doesn't work. And then I started feeling, really, really tired all the time, and then eventually I had an experience of burnout. This is a few years back, and it's not fun. It's just suddenly that the light goes out your eyes, just like it's total physical and emotional exhaustion. And it's not fun, but I didn't really know what to do about it, because obviously I had to keep on working, but it was the work itself or the too much work that was the problem. And to sort of take on new information for solutions, mine just wasn't in the place for it. But I'm better now. I still have a few Neil moments. I could be a bit absent-minded and stuff like that. But I think we can all do that. And there was quite a lot of people around me at that time. Not all of them, but some were just really judgy. And that doesn't really help either, does it? It's like, look, it's not like I'm doing this on purpose. I'm sorry. But people just get judgy and weird, which I suppose says more about them, doesn't it? Anyway, hello, Robert Van Buren. Hello, good day, Neil, and my fellow listeners from Dr. Asa Don Brown. Let's bring our guest on. There's her logo, Louise Bowditch Therapy, Connect, Heal, Grow, and as quick as a flash, Louise Bowditch was on the screen. Hello.
Good afternoon. Thank you for being patient. I had an issue, shall we say, a tech gremlin got in. So thank you for.
I have those all the time. It's no problem at all. Yes. Where would we be without our tech gremlins? How are you?
I'm well, thank you. Yes, and I'm glad that we eventually organised the date, and here we are.
Yes, really excited to talk to you about this, because on the midday show we do focus quite a lot on well-being, particularly on the Wednesday edition, and it's today. So I've had a look at your website. The first thing that struck me is you look so chilled out and well.
Yeah, the amazing illusion.
Right, okay.
But that is my goal always. My vision is to be chilled out and well, and that is my goal also for anyone who works with me and anyone I come into contact with. So
right. Tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do and what you do in the world.
Okay, so my like I say, my vision is to always make people feel a little bit better than when I found them. So to leave them feeling better than when I found them, whether that's in a day-to-day interaction at the shops or whatever, all my friends and family, and obviously with my clients. And I do
you just go around scattering good vibes wherever you go.
That is my purpose, I feel. And it's taken me a while to find a way to do that professionally, so to speak, because I've had a variety of different careers and worked in different areas, and it's taken me a while. I'm a late bloomer. I was a florist in a previous life, and I always call myself a late bloomer. Yes.
Oh, I see what you did there. Very good. Very good.
And I found that by experiencing different therapies over the years myself, and hypnotherapy was something that I had years and years ago, and it had a positive impact at the time, but I didn't, apart from wanting to always eat fish when I went to a restaurant because I was going with some support for, eating more healthily. That's the only lasting legacy of that particular session. That was about 30 years ago, which always amuses me. But in 2018, I had some hypnotherapy with a hypnotherapist for confidence. And it was from that moment that I suddenly became fascinated with how the brain works. It kind of illuminated some of my own struggles that I'd had. And I trained to become a therapist in 2020 during lockdown, of all times.
Oh, in my understanding of hypnotherapy, there's two parts of our mind. We've got a conscious and an unconscious.
Mm-hmm.
The unconscious is running the show, doing everything pretty much on automatic, and we need it to be. Otherwise, we'd have to relearn everything every single time we do it, down to opening a door or driving a car or anything like that. So we obviously need that autopilot. But we've also got running in the unconscious unhelpful programs, conditionings, beliefs about ourselves, about the world, you name it. There's an awful lot in there. Some of it good, some of it serves us. Don't want to touch that. I want to remember how to open doors or drive cars. Or if I had it installed into me that I was going to be great at everything I did, I'll take that. But most of us have lived enough negative experiences to believe, I suppose, certain things about the world, certain things about ourselves. And hypnotherapy, in my understanding, is getting the conscious, the critical mind out the way, and programming the unconscious. And I do notice this two mind thing in people very, very much so, or two levels of mind, I should say, because you can get someone saying, I know it doesn't make sense, but I really feel this. And that's almost like the two different parts of the mind talking, the logical conscious mind and the unconscious, which doesn't think on logic. It's more trigger reaction, isn't it? It just goes straight to the program. If I've missold hypnotherapy, let me know. But is that pretty much it?
That is a really good place to start.
Okay, I'll take that.
And everything you said is, is sort of the experience that pretty much everybody has.
Yeah.
I would say we have more than two parts of our brain. However, I caveat that by saying that when I introduce people to how the brain works, and I always include a session which is about psychoeducation in order for people to alleviate any guilt or shame, or why is this happening to me? I must be a weirdo. I'm not normal, and whatever. So I always have a good discussion with them about sharing how the brain works and the psychoeducation. And for those purposes, I explain it very similarly to how you just explained it, except I say we have one part of our brain which is our intellectual, the left prefrontal cortex, in charge, the boss, so to speak, and then we have a primitive brain, which is our sympathetic nervous system, which contains the amygdala, the hippocampus, and the hypothalamus. And that's how I explain it to my clients, because often it's the very first time they've actually had any education about how the brain works. They've just been struggling with what's been going on in their lives.
And it's very natural to blame ourselves for our own struggles. I remember times that I've struggled in my life. And was my inner critic supportive? No, it was a vile little troll that just made me feel that I was the worst, the weakest, the everything that you could name. And then I'm thinking, but this is my own thought. Why am I doing this to myself? And that was yet another reason to be up on myself.
Exactly.
One thing I did come to understand at the time, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, this is only a very lay person's understanding, that if we're under stress, if the old almond-shaped amygdala is all fired up, it shuts the prefrontal cortex down.
Absolutely.
And it removes the blood supply to it. That's what's happening physically, physiologically. But the experience is I found that I couldn't make good decisions. I was making some really crappy decisions, And then, and giving another, in a critic another reason to kick up, saying, you know, what did you do that for? What did you do that for? And the answer is, I didn't really know. I didn't understand my own behaviour. But it's this more primitive part of the brain, isn't it? Kicking into action. And again, we need it, but we don't want it to become the boss, shall we say?
Well,
so how do we make it all work then? How do we take what we've got and make it all fit together so we're functional human beings?
Well, you know, I would say that a lot of this is my own personal experience, my own learning, my training. I have done other sort of trained in other modalities which bring another dimension to it, another perspective. So that's really helpful. And obviously I'm still a work in progress,
as we all are,
and I know that, and the more I learn, the more I know how much I don't know. You know, and so staying humble is always helpful, I find. So there's so many places that I could start. Let me think. So in order for us to, so we're not broken and we don't need fixing. That is somewhere that I start.
That's a good place to start, because a lot of people do think they are. They think there's what is wrong with me? What is wrong with me?
Yeah. And, you know, we're not broken, we don't need fixing, and we're not a project either. And I think that's a lot of people, especially with the, you know, emergence of social media and influencers and lots of people having their opinions out there, you know, in social media
I've
land.
not heard it put this way before. Not a project. What do you mean by that? That's new to me.
So we're not a project, as in we don't constantly need to look outside of ourselves in order to feel whole and complete. We are whole and complete as we are, imperfections and all. And I think if we can grasp that, we don't have to necessarily have the tools to put that into practice to begin with, but it's being open-minded enough to realize that there's a different way of doing things. Because if the way that we'd been doing things previously was helpful, then we'd already be sorted.
Exactly. I studied some NLP. I'm sure you've encountered NLP. Again, one of the original premises of that, one of the tenets of it, if you like, I won't say rules, because one of the tenets is flexibility. And the minute there's a hard and fast rule, that kind of destroys that. But one of its tenets is, as I'm sure you know, people are not broken. People have all the resources they need to make the changes, and it's the job of the practitioner. And it's often paired with hypnotherapy. There was a lot of NLP and hypnotherapy courses. I just did a little 2-day taster course on hypnotherapy, but I did do the full NLP course, the practitioner course, and it's the job of the practitioner to unlock the key. And sometimes it can be so quick with NLP, as I'm sure you know, and hypnotherapy too, that people go, oh my God, what did you do? This is magic. And it's not. Or if it is, you're showing them that they've got the magic all along. You're just the key master. They've got the resources. It's not like something we're doing to them.
Yes,
they're doing it to themselves with insight, I suppose.
Yes, and that's really important. So when I have a sort of a half an hour informal chat with anyone who's interested in working with me, I always make it very clear that it's a two-way process. That I bring 100% of my commitment and of my desire to be of service to them and to put into practice all my personal experience and learning and teaching and etc. But I also let them know that they have to bring back that level of commitment. They can't come to see me half-assed, because they won't get what they're looking for. They won't get the transformation that they're looking for.
I think we've lost over the years the sense of almost responsibility for our own health.
Yeah, that's
certainly with physical health. Oh, the doctor will just fix me. That's not a good strategy. No matter how brilliant a doctor is, we have to have a collaborative part in the process. And it's the same for mental health, but I think that's less people's fault, because when I was growing up, it was that age of genetic determinism, wasn't it? So if you got breast cancer in the family, chances are you're going to get it too. Now we know about epigenetics, and it's all about environment and all sorts of other things, thanks to the work of Bruce Lipton and people like that. Great book, The Biology of Belief. Recommend that. But I thought it was sort of like, it was just bad luck if you got mentally ill. What I didn't know is there was stuff that we could do or be taught to do, because that's how I see practitioners personally, as brilliant teachers, the best teachers you'll ever have, to empower you to help yourself. But again, it's not fix me. It's not like magic fairy dust. It's not fix. You got to bring. But I have noticed in the younger generation, my friends that are in their 20s, they're talking more about my mental health, like they've got some sort of agency over it, and that was not in our lexicon in the 80s when I was growing up. Certainly,
No,
it was
and
just
neither for
got cancer,
me.
probably genetics. Got mental health problems, probably genetics. Tough. So I'm really glad that understanding is expanded. Do you agree? Does that make sense?
Yes, I think we're not taught at schools or college, or even because our environment, our conditioning as we were growing up, our parents or caregivers, certainly, I grew up in the 80s as well, didn't have that knowledge either. Neuroscience has really come on leaps and bounds over the last 10 years.
I think a big watershed moment was when Oxford Uni studied mindfulness, wasn't it? When people like Ruby Wax got involved and all that. And then for me, I thought, because people think mindfulness, go and dress in robes and go into a cave in Tibet for 30 years to find some peace. No,
sounds appealing for me now.
Does it actually? No, yeah. I think I need things a bit more.
Maybe not 30 years, personally. But certainly 30 days might be quite nice.
Maybe. But then, if Oxford Uni are studying it, suddenly people, and what they could do to appeal to our Western minds is put it in scientific terms, not woo-woo terms. Not that I've got a problem with woo-woo, but it just doesn't appeal particularly to the Western mind, does it?
No, but what's really interesting is that neuroscience has only just caught up, and other sort of areas of our sort of scientific community are only just catching up to be able to prove to the people who want evidence-based research and studies to show that XYZ works. Well, it's there's a brilliant book by David Hamilton called Why Woo Woo Works.
Dr. David Hamilton, yes,
Dr.
the scientist, not the DJ.
Yeah, no, oh gosh, no, God blimey, that's a blast.
Not Diddy David Hamilton, no.
That was before my time, really. But yes, Dr. David Hamilton, who was I think he was a biochemist or a.
He worked in chemistry. He made things like chemotherapy drugs, and didn't he?
Yeah,
things
in
like
pharmaceuticals.
Yeah.
And so. Science is actually catching up now. So for the people who are naysayers and non-believers, there is now more research that backs up what people have healers have had instinctively known.
Yes, exactly. Often get an image of an old sort of guru sitting in a cave going, well, I could have told you that 2,000 years ago.
Yeah.
But you wouldn't listen.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So I think when people have that open-mindedness, and I think what's really interesting is that one of the premises that I talk about is that, for anyone, we are not our thoughts. It's really, really important to know that we are not our thoughts. And people
have a mind, but we are not our mind.
Yeah, exactly. And they really have a hard time being able to observe that and put it into practice and etc. Well, certainly some clients do, not everyone. But the fact that they've come to work with me or any other therapist for that matter proves that they are the observer, because they are going, I don't want to feel like this anymore. I don't like what's going on anymore. I want something to change.
Yeah, and who's the one doing that observation?
Exactly.
This is where I go down the rabbit hole. Do you remember that film, What the Bleep Do We Know? Do you remember that?
I've heard of it vaguely, but I can't remember.
It was kind of the introduction to quantum physics for the masses, but all kind of Hollywooded up a bit. It was very good, and it's like, how far down the rabbit hole do you want to go? And I do that sometimes if I have a philosophical conversation, a couple of pints of Foster's, and I'm like, parasympathetic kicks in, and which is not a healthy way of doing it. There are healthier ways, which is what we're talking about. But then I start thinking, okay, so I'm not my thoughts, but who's the one saying I'm not my thoughts? And who's the one watching the one that's saying, I want my thoughts? Who's the one watching the one that... And back in the Hall of Mirrors, and no matter how far back you go, you can't find it. It's like a ghost in the machine. And yet it exists because we do. Now...
Well, I would say it's consciousness. And we are a collective consciousness.
Yes.
So we are all, there's no separation. There's no such thing as separation. We are all connected. And
yes, we're all one. We are the ultimate spiritual
exactly.
unity,
And it's all around us. It's an energy, it's a frequency, it's a that's why we can pick up on vibes, oh no, I don't want to go there, bad juju over there, or bad negative vibes coming from there, or oh my god, I love being with that person. They exude something really lovely, and it really makes, I always feel so great when I spent time with them.
Yeah, absolutely. But again, they think it's you doing it to them, don't they? Rather than them being inspired to their own. This is the big misunderstanding. We've all got access to that. We've all got access to these good vibes. It's like people that fall in love with their therapist because they think therapist, I've heard so many stories of that, and it's like, no, fall in love with yourself.
Exactly. And I think it's because people aren't open to the fact to begin with that we are all energy, and
yes.
that energy is all connected. And it's really interesting, sort of, because I don't just offer hypnotherapy and work with hypnosis.
You do forest bathing too. I want to hear all about this.
Yeah. So I call it nature connection.
Okay.
And it started with a little kind of what I call a soul whisper, which sounds a bit naff, but it was like a little thought that, again, I'm not my thoughts, but it popped into my head. And I bought a camper van from a friend of mine, and we were literally just doing the sort of exchanging of keys, and I transferred the money and she was showing me, press this button and push that thing and whatever. And I said out loud, I said, oh God, I wonder if Bertha, because I called her Bertha, I wonder if I could do my hypnotherapy sessions in Bertha as my hypnotherapy space, but in nature, kind of outside in nature. And that was in beginning of 2022. And then by March 2023, I'd let my office go, my sort of, bricks and mortar therapy office that I had, relatively local to me. And I started offering my hypnotherapy sessions in Bertha. So I'd park her up in a nature reserve, local to where I live. I had to jump through loads of hoops for insurance, and it was a bit of a nightmare, but I eventually managed to do it, and had a really lovely start to that side of my practice. And then come 2024, my own energy was in a funk. It just didn't seem right. However, what did seem right, and was the next step for me to take personally and professionally, was to do a woodland immersion. So it was a week-long stay, not overnight, just every day for 5 days in a private woodland in the forest, with a teacher, and I experienced all the practices and principles of forest bathing, or Shinrin Yoku, which is the Japanese practice where it comes from, and had one of the most profound experiences of my life.
I saw a lovely meme about that. It said, I took my mobile phone into the office. The reception was bad, but the connection was wonderful.
Yes, exactly. And that is now my mantra, really. My mantra, my aim, my goal, my vision is to help others rediscover their true nature through nature. True nature through nature. It's like that simple. Yeah.
And that's pretty much the leading headline on your website, isn't it? Yeah. So what is our true nature? Because what I observe is 99% of the people I know are in the sciencey term sympathetic mode, stress mode all the time. When they finally get into parasympathetic, they're like different people. They're like different people. And this isn't to put blame on anyone, because we're all a victim of it. And victim's not a good word, but we all experience it in some way. But they really are. They're nicer to be. I'm nicer to be around when I'm in parasympathetic. I'm not good in stress mode. I'm not particularly nice. But I don't know anyone that is nice in stress mode. At the low end of it, it's just busy holism, as the term was coined in the 90s, wasn't it? Being a busy holic. But the other end, it can lead to burnout, which is what happened to me, because I thought, I need to keep working. I've got to keep doing. But doing wasn't the answer. I also saw a lovely quote. Don't be a doer. Let's just do a beer. Do a beater. I thought I quite like that one.
Well, it's a bit cheesy, but the phrase is, we are human beings, not human doings.
Yes.
And that is the essence, because not only do I think that people just need to stop and step away from the commercialism, the capitalism, the consumerism, the cultural and societal pressure of do, be productive. You've had a really lazy, crappy day if you haven't been productive, if you haven't done X, Y, Z, if you haven't ticked off half your to-do list.
And people feel guilty about it. I know people I'm very close to feel guilty if they don't feel they've done enough. And I always say to them, stop. Yeah. And it's like this. No, this is. So tell us more. What is this true nature?
So what I've discovered for myself, and over the years, as I think, obviously, again, this is only my perspective, but as I have moved closer to my true nature, which is just doing absolutely nothing in nature, for me, that's how I access my true nature.
It's your portal. Yes,
it is my portal indeed. I love that. And it's about, well, I want to swear, but it's about doing F all.
By the way, we're not Ofcom regulated. Do you want to drop the F-bomb? That's fine.
Okay. Right, then it's about doing fuck all.
Fuck all, yeah.
Because it is something that we are made to feel guilty about. Our conditioning, our environment, we are made to feel guilty if we're doing nothing. If we're reading a book, then we're educating ourselves and we're escaping and whatever. Well, I want to just be, so I don't have to escape from anything and from anyone. And when I'm in nature, that is how I access that space inside of me.
I love what you're saying. It's a space inside all of us. Our portals may be different. I notice a lot of people accessing those portals with what I call a good intention but a poor strategy, like having a knackering day and then drinking to relax, or something like that, or drinking too much to relax. I'm not against having a beer, but drinking 5 beers every night to relax is probably not the best strategy.
It's escapism. It's a coping strategy, but it's escaping what is. And
you're saying you don't need to escape anything.
No.
Now, I've never quite heard it put that way before. Run that by me again, because I love this, Louise.
Basically, when we're in our true nature, we can be in a shit show. We can have other people, which is often the case. Other people are often the case, not always, but often the case is other people. It's relationships, it's our job, it's external to us.
Yeah.
And we can be in the biggest shit show of our lives. Another phrase that I use with clients who don't mind the odd F-bomb is that we're all glorious fuck-ups.
I like that.
We're glorious fuck-ups. And once we
I really like that. That's just really landed.
Yeah. And once we are a glorious fuck-up. We are a glorious fuck-up. And
I'm a mixed up crazy kid in a mad world.
Exactly, yeah. And who gives a shit? Because that is our external circumstances, our conditioning, our environment, the societal, the cultural, the religious, the pressures that we as humans are put under. And when we come back to our true essence, our true selves, our true nature, nothing matters. You can still have a shit show going on, but when you're in your zone, in your space.
Oh, that's my girlfriend's daughter. that's all right. This is Roslyn. Roslyn, this is Louise.
Hi, nice to meet you. Hi. When we're in that space, it doesn't matter what we can still access joy in that space. One of my values, I've got 3 values: joy, connection, and fun. And joy,
fun is so important. As well.
God, I can't bear life without it. I mean,
fun is number one.
Point?
I've heard many sort of personal development teachers teach that, and joy, connection, and fun.
Mm.
And isn't creating the life you want so much easier from that space?
Yeah, because even
it's
if
like struggle or struggle or ease, isn't it? Oh,
yeah.
another one for you, which I like. It's if we struggle, we dis ease, which I thought was quite clever. You were saying, sorry.
No, all I was going to say is that I don't know what I was going to say. It's completely gone. But yes, everything can be going to shit in our external worlds. But when we are at ease and at peace with ourselves, and back to our true nature, our true essence, it doesn't matter, because you can still find moments of joy in amongst sadness. You could be in the throes of a really difficult bereavement, grief, loss. It could be chaos. When you find that place within that just allows you to be without doing anything, without trying to change anything, with dropping the resistance, letting go, that's when, for me personally, that's when I find my true nature. And that is what I encourage all my clients. And it's interesting, because I talk about some of these concepts and premises at the very beginning, and then I have to kind of let that go, because otherwise, if I'm sharing stuff that really blows their mind, that really challenges their beliefs, and I mean, we know that people will kill and die for their beliefs. When people's beliefs are challenged, we know through neuroscience, through research and studies, that it lights up the same part of our sympathetic nervous system, the fight part of our nervous system. So we know that we have to be very, careful with how we encourage people to view their beliefs differently, and to let them go, and maybe to choose a different belief, which is why hypnotherapy is so great, because that comes in by the back door, especially through metaphor. Storytelling is really powerful.
Milton Erickson was very big into that, wasn't he?
Yes, he was. And the studying that I did is some of it is very much based in the sort of Milton Erickson school of thought.
Very quickly, hold that thought. Introducing Liz Saul to the show. She's our co-presenter.
Hello. Hi, everyone. Hello, Louise.
You're getting some nice comments from our listeners as well, so I'll do some of those. And by the way, folks, any questions for Louise, by all means, stick them on the timeline, and I shall put them to the good lady. But basically, what you're saying, and this is challenging me even now, even though I know this stuff, it's possible to find joy no matter what. Is that what you're saying?
Possible to find
joy no matter what is going on.
Yes.
And the reason is, it's not the external world that dictates how we feel.
No.
It's what we think about the external world that that is still quite challenging for me. Used to be terribly challenging in previous years. I'd have dismissed it as absolute nonsense. Oh yeah, I don't know, whole family gets wiped out and I'm supposed to be joyful about it. I'd have got sarcastic, but it is.
He did as well.
But it is true, isn't it? It's the truth. Joy, through whatever portal we have, is available. Tell us more.
Yeah. Well, and I sort of want to, I think it's different for, our fellow humans who are in the middle of conflict, of, destruction of their homes, of their hospitals, of their families, when they are literally losing everything, not just a roof over their heads, but
because there are some that would say, "Oh, that's easy for you or me."
Yeah.
To say we're living in the UK, it's pretty safe. You know what I mean? We're not in a war zone. We're not in conflict. So because there will be people thinking that. What would you say to people like that?
Yeah. Well, for people who have experienced that, if they've come out the other side and they're now in a place where they're not experiencing that, then it's access to all the support services and the resources that will be able to help them through that, will be able to help them with their, trauma and their unprocessed and even unrecognized trauma that will help them. So I think, I'm speaking from a very privileged position, and I always want to acknowledge that. And so, for others who are in areas and zones of conflict, there's famine, there's disease, I think it is difficult, and depending on their own belief system and depending on where, their cultural and spiritual, beliefs lie, I do feel that some people would still say that is possible, but I'm talking about our sort of Western world, even though obviously I appreciate that Ukraine is going through something very, in Europe is going through something very difficult at the moment. So I know that what I'm saying might not apply to everybody, but I'm certainly applying to those of us who have a certain amount of choice in our lives, even if our beginnings and our starts and our trauma are from childhood or whatever, or we've experienced things. So
let's talk about trauma for a little bit. Does the trauma need to be healed before people can find joy, or is there a baseline of joy that people can tap into and work through the trauma?
Okay, so I'm going to use myself. I'm client number one. So I've experienced childhood trauma. Sure. And I didn't heal that until relatively, is it healed? I don't know. It's a work in progress. I'm a work in progress.
You're addressing it.
And I have faced up to it. I have taken steps to move through it. Yeah. And yet I know that I was still able to experience moments of joy.
Yeah.
Maybe in retrospect, I look back and go, oh yeah, that was a joyful moment. That was a joyful moment. Maybe I didn't recognize it in the time, but then again, I wasn't a therapist before then. I hadn't had training.
You wouldn't have the vocabulary.
My mind up. Yeah.
And I think we're also very hard. I think we're very hard on ourselves, including in the topic of healing. I certainly was, but then it's always so much easier to see it in other people than yourself. And I would say to friends, look, put it on a visual. Look if it was like a visual, a big long bit of paper. Look where you were there, and look where you are now. See it big in front of you. Look at this visual. Look how far you've come.
Yes.
But the trick is that our brain plays on itself. Is that if we have a trigger, a wobble, a moment, it suddenly feels like all the work you've done, or it did for me, is for now. There was no point in doing that. You're back in your dark place. But no, number one, that's not true. And I found in my healing work in progress that the triggers or the bad thoughts and feelings will become less intense, less regular, and last for less long in a slow and steady arc, in a slow and steady graph. And that's great. And
I think the other thing to remember is that sometimes people can feel that a journey to heal themselves or to deal with any traumas or unresolved issues is that, it can be very overwhelming. Oh, I can't possibly do that. It's too much effort. It's too hard. It's all the excuses. Whereas it's not really. It's one step at a time. You mentioned forest bathing, nature bathing earlier. Actually, interestingly, it was something I was working on last week and published an article of my day job earlier this week about, you can just nip out from wherever you work. Whether it's in an office, wherever that might be, and get out and enjoy the greenery. There might be a green space nearby. This person I interviewed was lucky enough to have a conservation area near where they worked. And so, they would make sure they went out every day during the course of their working day, come rain or shine, and just go to this conservation area. And it gave them what they called a mini digital detox. And it can start with just that.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Oh my God, don't get me started on all the benefits, of being out in nature.
Get started on it, please. We want to get you started.
Okay.
I'll tell you what. Before you get started, because I want to hear about this, we're just going to put some questions on. Meet Dr. Asa Don Brown, Louise.
Hello, Asa.
He's very high up in the
Hello, Asa.
you were saying Canada psychological community, and he's really good to have on the show because he's always got some useful opinions and words of wisdom. Good day, Louise. I wholeheartedly agree. We're imperfectly created. It's often because of our imperfections that we strive for more. Neurologically, in our early development, we're geared to think, ponder, and tick in certain ways. But the good news is we can change these perspectives and worldviews, and hypnotherapy is one of the tools to do that.
Yeah,
of course.
Yeah. And I would also say that even if our beliefs are really, really embedded, even if our early childhood experiences, because we're in a hypnotic state up until about the age of 7 anyway, we're in that alpha frequency. So that's why everything is often related, and we absorb everything.
By osmosis. Literally,
kids are sponges.
Absolutely. That's why they can learn languages. They can have parents speaking 2 different languages in the home.
Yes.
And they, and before you know it, these children are fluent in both languages without any formal lessons. I mean, it's absolutely incredible. And but not only do we absorb by osmosis about what's going on around, that also means that something can happen to someone else that we witness. And it's as if it happened to ourselves. The primitive brain has real trouble in discerning what is reality and what is imagination.
Is this mirror neurons?
Yes, it can be mirror neurons, but it's the way that we, that's why stories, etc., are so powerful, because they impact a different part of our brain to our rational, logical, intellectual thinking brain.
Yes.
They access a different part of us. And so, children up until they're 7, they're kind of, in a hypnotic state. So that's why beliefs can be so entrenched and planted, where, again, and they might not even be our own beliefs. They're the beliefs of our caregivers. They're the beliefs of the people around us. They're the beliefs of the people that we hang out with,
Exactly. It's not a coincidence that an acronym for belief system is BS sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah, great. Yes. But what I love, and what I've learned more recently, is that it's almost, we don't even have to get rid of our beliefs.
Yeah.
We can just live like they don't matter, like they don't have any negative input or impact on us.
But wouldn't they still be running you if you're not conscious of them?
No, because if you're aware, when we look at our beliefs, and some of the work that I've done talks about there being about 12 beliefs. When everything else is kind of distilled down, there's about 12 beliefs.
All right, let me guess. I'm not worthy.
Yeah.
Too old, too young.
Too big, too small.
Too big, too small, too white, too black. No? No? Okay, no. So I'm not worthy. That's a big one.
So I'm not worthy. I'm not enough.
Yeah.
Everything has to be perfect.
Ah.
I'm not allowed to be capable.
Oh.
Yeah. I'm powerless.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, I'm struggling now. What's another one?
We often have to remember it's that some of these things manifest themselves, or they can't be seen by the person who might be effective in coercive and controlling relationships. And that's another thing, if you like, that's more difficult to take that first step to move yourself away from.
Of course, yeah.
I edited a brilliant podcast yesterday, which I'll plug before the end of the show, from a lady that's been on before, all about coercive control. But I'll talk about that at the end. Yes, you were saying I'm unworthy, I'm powerless, I'm not allowed to be capable. So it's a fear of success as well as a fear of failure, possibly.
Oh, it can be as anything and everything, and both of those kind of come from our mother figures and our father figures. And so, but when we have understanding of, because what riles me to a certain extent of some of the personal development and self-development spaces, I can't stand affirmations, really.
No?
Well, because they're often from a space and a place of the exact opposite of what you don't want or what you don't believe. Looking in a mirror going, I am beautiful, I am strong, I am powerful, whatever. They're created because you don't believe that you are.
So you're coming from a place of lack when you're trying
negative,
to affirm.
Of lack, exactly. And that's where the focus and the power is on what you don't want.
So how
even
do you
though,
flip that around?
well, because you acknowledge it. You look at it and you go, oh yeah, I feel worthless. I feel like a piece of, doggy's doo-doo on someone's shoe. I feel lousy. I feel powerless. I've got no autonomy in my life. I can't do anything. So you have to acknowledge where you are, where that, sometimes, I mean, with hypnotherapy, especially with trauma work, we're often looking at the root cause, looking for the root cause, finding that thing beneath all the layers to find out where it kind of all started from. And that can be really, really helpful. Sometimes we know, sometimes we don't. Sometimes we'll find out, sometimes we won't. Or at least we won't know and understand on a conscious level. But, even if we, so therefore we have to acknowledge where we are. If we want to go somewhere else, anywhere, if you want to get from A to B, you can't navigate to B until you know where A is.
So
in
you
relation to
acknowledge where
everything
you
else.
are. I'm trying to break this down as we go through it. You acknowledge where you are.
Acknowledge where you are.
For example, I've known in the past some girls, women, young women in the 20s that would be considered beautiful, that would be considered so-called, by society standards. And yes, that's very questionable and all that sort of thing. But just for the purpose of this conversation, the perfect 10, and yet they thought they were ugly.
Yeah.
Now, to any observer, certainly any male one, you go, no, you're not. You're absolutely doing gorgeous. Why are you thinking that? So, if they wanted to believe that they were beautiful, which in my opinion they were, they would have to start by acknowledging that hang on, I think I'm answering my own question. They would have to start by acknowledging that they believed they weren't.
Yeah.
And now I'm stuck. Take me from here.
Yeah. Well, I've not worked with that particular scenario, but so I'm just sort of making up as I go along here. So if someone had that deep down seated belief that they were ugly, so it's not that they don't believe they're not beautiful, that they feel that they're ugly, and that could be ugly on the outside or ugly on the inside. That will have come, I'm convinced, from experiences that they've had, in their childhood as they were growing up.
Right.
Because what would have happened, I think, in those younger years, is there would have been a seed of doubt in their mind that they were, because when we're younger, we think the world revolves around us. We don't really have a sense of separation until we get to much older. We don't know that we're not our parents, or we're not, the trees, or that we're not the furniture in our house. We don't understand that separation. It's only until our ego gets wounded, so to speak, our parts of us get wounded, get hurt, and then we attach a meaning to it. So this is the thing, you see. So for instance, if someone had the belief that they were ugly, what may have happened, from a long time ago, is that I don't know, a parent might have said, you're not wearing that. They'd got dressed themselves, and the parent might have said, well, you're not wearing that. It clashes, or it's this or that, whatever. And so therefore they all of a sudden might interpret that as, oh, well, that I'm not good enough then. I'm not good enough to make my own choices, or I'm not
good enough for this authority figure.
Yeah, I'm not good enough is a really big one. I'm not good enough, and I'm unworthy are two of the really most common ones. But so from that belief, there's this self-doubt coming in, and they don't understand that actually it was actually a practical thing. The parent didn't mean to impact their child's belief system from such a young age. It was that there was dinner down the front of this outfit, or actually that outfit was for the next day because they were going to a special event or whatever. I'm just like I say, I'm making up as I go along here, but that's how easily a belief can be created. Or a child can witness, like I said, we don't even have to go through these experiences ourselves. We can witness them. So perhaps a younger sibling saw, is at school or something, and sees children being mean to each other, and sees their best friend or their older sibling, oh, you're ugly, or you're this, or whatever, and then suddenly makes an association that's not there. Well, they want to, they don't want to be noticed, because at home, if they're noticed, they get into trouble. So at school, they're quiet, they don't say anything, and they shrink back. And then because they shrink back, they're overlooked. And because they're overlooked, they might think, well, why am I overlooked? Because they don't know that they've shrunk back to avoid
and it becomes
conflict.
a self-perpetuating cycle. So we
And
agree
it's also societal, because when I was a child, it was very much children are seen and not heard kind of thing. I remember with sort of things like, that sums it up really. But, parents who were getting divorced and things like that, there was never any suggestion that you took any notice of what the child might want. They're a child. Why would they know what they want and things like that? Whereas these days, it's very much, make sure the child or the children know it's not their fault. Mum and dad don't get on anymore, but it's not your fault. You're fine. You're not a problem.
The children do take on these things. So
when we make it up, that's the thing. We make everything up. That's why as adults, we then have to kind of re-educate ourselves and go, well, I'm not my thoughts.
Or reparent
because they're full of shit. Our thoughts are absolute nonsense.
Yeah.
I've got a very wise friend of mine, and she said this quite a few years ago, and she said she's a practicing Buddhist, has been a practicing Buddhist for about 25 years nearly, or more, and she said thoughts are for entertainment purposes only.
Oh, I love that.
That's brilliant.
And I don't have to take any notice of them, and even if I have the thought, then it's it's not the truth, it's not true. And so that was something that really helped me. And then as I've studied, became a hypnotherapist, and sort of expanded what sort of my realms of understanding and things like that, I now have actually got a framework and a structure that I can explain to clients that show that's the case, which really helps. But thoughts are a load of nonsense, and we make it all up. So if we're going to make it up, why not make it up so that it benefits us?
Exactly. If we're making up the story anyway, but we need to know that we have the power to do that. And this is where people like you and practitioners of these healing arts come in. So we got back. So we go. So first we acknowledge we've got it, the awareness. Okay. To know where we're starting, to know where point A is, to navigate to point B, because you can't have one without the other. And then we accept it's not our fault that we've got it necessarily. Then how has it turned around into the opposite that we want it to be?
Well, I think it's the word truth for me personally is a really powerful word, and it comes from, in my experience, doesn't come from my head, comes from my heart.
Right.
It's a felt body centric, somatic feeling. It's the truth. And obviously everyone's truth is different. So the truth is different to my truth.
Yes.
And I don't believe in those who say, well, I'm just saying my truth, when it actually negatively impacts others. I don't necessarily believe that.
No, that's a new age cop out.
It's not a skillful way. It's we have to take self-responsibility. Everything starts with self-responsibility. And so when we make choices about what is our truth, I think it's a felt, a full body experience, and it comes from the heart. And then, so it's kind of like, if someone has this idea that they're ugly and they're not beautiful, it would be a case of finding out what is it that they want. What is it they want? Well, they might say, well, I want to feel beautiful, or I want the confidence, or whatever. And I don't, and even that is just the opposite of what they don't want. This is great. I love this. I can't remember where I heard it from, but it's like, in my line of work, I will say to my clients, look, it's really easy. We're born with an 80% negative bias.
That's quite high, actually. That's higher than I expected.
Oh no, it's 80% negative bias, because that's how our amygdala keeps us safe. Our primitive brain, our evolutionary brain.
And that's the whole purpose of our unconscious, or amygdala, if you like, to keep us safe.
Yes, for the amygdala's job, to keep us safe, and it works.
But it can go a little bit over the top sometimes.
Exactly. Well,
if you were bitten by a dog as a child, it doesn't mean you need to be scared of dogs for the rest of your life.
No. but often people might be.
Mm.
You know.
And that's where people like you come in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But so we I've lost the train of my thought actually. So
Don't worry.
no, that's gone.
That's all right. Let it go. Let it go. It'll come back.
It'll come back. It will definitely come back.
Amygdalas. We were talking about amygdalas.
Yes. Oh, 80% negative bias. Yeah. No, it's all come back. All come back. So 80% negative bias. So
I do that all the time, by the way. All the time.
Well, that's why. Yeah. There you go. So 80% negative bias, which means that in order to keep us safe, that's what our brain does, and everybody has that. And if we didn't have that, well, we'd all be dead at a very, very young age. So with this 80% negative bias, it's really easy to say what we don't want. Well, I don't want to feel ugly. I don't want to feel, unworthy. I don't want to feel like I don't want, to be poor. I don't want to be ill. It's really easy.
Yeah, you're right. Most people tell us what they don't want in life.
Yeah.
Very few people say, I do want this.
Yeah. So it rolls off the tongue. It's easy. And that's because of how our brains are wired. So we can put that to one side now and go, okay, well, it's not our fault as such. Things are stacked up against us. So I actually take my hat off to us humans and think, Christ, we've done really well, to be fair. We've got 80% negative bias and we've got this far. We've done all right, haven't we? So you've got this 80% negative bias. So we have to start to rewire our brain. So that's what the neuroscience has taught us. And we now know that, neurons that fire together, wire together. That's how habits are made. That's how patterns, our brains are pattern matching machines. That's what they want to do. They just want to do the same thing. Rewired.
And it's just using that natural pattern making to tell the story that we want to tell. And also,
one of the ways that I sort of explain it to my clients and anyone who'll listen, to be fair, is that, we wouldn't go to a supermarket with a list of things that we don't want.
That's a very clever way of putting it.
Because we wouldn't find anything that we wanted. We'd be totally distracted by everything that we didn't want. We're going, no, I don't want that. I don't want that. Oh, do I want that? Maybe I want that. Oh, I'm not sure. I don't need. So it's like, how about you write your shopping list for what you actually want? And then, so if you have an idea of what you want, that's helpful. But if it's purely based in the opposite of what you don't want, the power is still in what you don't want.
So how do we disempower what we don't want?
Well, because you drop the resistance. You drop the resistance and you go, oh, there I am. There's the wounded little.
So step back, put the dark glasses on, become the observer.
Yeah. And you go, look at that poor little, Louise, whatever, there she is. Bless her. And then we can, if we bring some compassion there to begin with, and just drop the stick with which we're beating ourselves, and just go. And what else is really powerful? If things could have been any different, they would be.
Oh, right. That ties in very nicely. Ties in very nicely to a comment from Dr. Asa. I've got a couple more comments I want to do. Louise, the core of my work has been trauma, and specifically childhood trauma. I've always believed that we can heal the wounds that traumatize us, but there will undoubtedly be a scar left behind. The good news is we are not the trauma. We do not have to live in the trauma, and the scar is a simple reminder of events that we have overcome. That tied in beautifully, didn't it? Also,
we don't have to be defined. We don't have to be defined by our past.
Oh, this is another nice one. First we were fine, and then we were defined, and now we're becoming refined.
Refined, yeah.
And my cliche is trailing behind me.
I love a cliche.
Good. I'm glad you do. You're in the right place for that, man.
Well, the reason that they're so, they're cliches because they're, there's that element of truth in them.
Well, cliche,
and they're easy to remember.
Yeah. Also, I'm not being rude, your RAS, reticular activation system, is in that the experience of that is perhaps, ladies, you've bought a new dress and suddenly you see it everywhere, or you've bought a new car and suddenly it's all you see on the roads, and that's because it's the brain, like Louise has talked about, pattern matching, and looking for what's being noticed, where the focus of attention is zoomed in on. So if we focus on what we don't want, we're going to see an awful lot more of that. But if we focus
we're given evidence, then we're given evidence that what we don't want is readily available and it's everywhere.
And,
Whereas
and what we don't realise is we're creating our own evidence. We just
yeah.
think it's the world, and that's the belief system coming in, right?
Yeah. But that's because then our focus creates our reality.
Yeah.
And our you know, and our reality reveals our focus. So if someone's in the mirror going, you know, I am beautiful, and they still don't feel like they're beautiful, it's showing them that their focus isn't on the fact that they're beautiful, it's on the fact that they still don't believe they're beautiful.
So you could say reality, whatever it is a feedback system.
Yeah, it's like a big loop.
And there's no failure, only feedback. John Davis, fellow radio chap, says, interesting, maybe, point is the French language and the German language each have the same word for to do and to make. That's like the doing and being thing that we were talking about earlier. Fat Scotty, another radio guy, you're surrounded by radio people here. I'm so sorry about that, Louise. Oh my days, I've never heard so much potty mouth on the midday show ever. It's brilliant. Yes, we can drop the F-bomb if we want to, and we don't even care.
Lovely. See, that's me being my authentic, true self, you see.
but why not? Why not? Now, would you like, because you've got a newsletter people can sign up to, can we direct people? Can they sign up on the website?
Yes, please do. Yes. So my website is on the screen, louisebowditch.com. And if you scroll down to the bottom, there is a newsletter sign up, which will allow you to receive a free guide, which is called Stress Less and Thrive More. The lazy way, or the lazy way to stress less and thrive more. Look at that, I've messed up my own advert, but anyway, it's a fantastic guide. It brings nature connection and hypnotherapy together.
Brilliant.
I am in the process of creating a membership which is called the Lazy Way. You know, so going back to my true nature, what I've discovered over the years, I don't want to do anything hard anymore. I don't want to even work smart. I just want to do everything with as much ease as I possibly can. And I believe that hypnotherapy, listening to recorded audios, which will help to depotentiate, if you like, neutralize, whatever fancy word you want to give it, the emotions attached to things that have happened in the past. A lot of time where those beliefs have come from is to do with trauma, unprocessed emotions, unrecognized trauma even. So by listening, you know, relaxing, getting comfortable, lying on the bed or on your sofa, cushions, blankets, you know, whatever, fan, you know, woo-woo music in the very background, but listening to these recordings of you know, brilliant ways to access via the back door, if you like, to really have an understanding of the root cause, you know, to bypass that critical faculty, is one of the laziest and most brilliant ways to have some healing.
I like the sound of it.
And then with nature connection, it kind of comes in and then just what's the word? It really solidifies the being part. So that's the membership I'm working on, which is called the Lazy Way.
It sounds brilliant, like these two parts just synchronized perfectly.
I know, and it's amazing, isn't it, how things come together. But that is the sort of the precursor to that is my guide that people can sign up to and get a free copy of if they sign up at louisebowditch.com, and then they join my mailing list, and we'll find out when it's ready to go.
And we like free stuff.
Oh yeah, I love a freebie.
We encourage people to sign up because
yes,
we could talk for hours, days, even about all the wisdom that you share, but we'd probably get a bit tired. So,
but
it's
well, you'll have to come on again. That's all.
Yes. Feel free to come. I tell you what, when you launch your membership, hit me up on the socials, send me a message, and we'll get you on again. We'll do we'll have a launch show because I really think your stuff is so valuable and the world needs more.
Absolutely.
So thank you on behalf of everyone for the work you're doing, and thank you for being on the Midday Show.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely fascinating talking to you. And what I'll do, if you wish, I'll send you the footage of this, and if you want to use that for any marketing purposes or anything like that, you can slice and dice it as you wish, or just delete it to your recycle bin, and we'll never darken your doors again.
Oh no, I've loved this. It's been a really, really interesting chat, and I've loved to hear other people's perspectives and feedback. So yes, please do. And if anyone has any other questions, they can just go on to my website, and I've got a contact form so they can contact me, and I'll be happy to chat.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Russ and the gang will be back on Friday with the king of the cravats, Mr. Phil Dave, the screen queen, Chantal Ricards, with all the good stuff to watch on telly, and theatre critic Jonathan Baz. I will be back next Wednesday and Monday, probably with some more interruptions from Cheeky Chops over here. Come and say goodbye, Roslyn. There we go.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Roslyn.
You can throw the pillow at my... Ow! Can only apologise for that. Yeah. I'm still live on it. Is there any hypnotherapy for teenagers?
Oh dear, I'm afraid I only work with over 18s.
Oh, right. I know I'm getting you for your 18th birthday. Anyway, Louise Boat about it. It's been absolutely brilliant talking to you, and I'll be in touch with the footage later. Thank you so much.
Lovely. Thank you, everybody. Thanks, Liz. Nice to meet you both. Bye-bye.
See you soon. Bye-bye.
Edited a podcast yesterday from a lady that's been on the show recently, and she will be on again pretty soon. Her name is
Tell us more.
Lucy Cavendish.
Mm-hmm.
Her podcast is How to Have Extraordinary Relationships, and she's done an extra special one on the subject of, like you mentioned earlier, coercive control, which is, I feel very strongly about, because it's just paralyzing for the person that's involved in something like that. So well worth listening to, and I'll pop a link. I might pop a link on my Facebook wall, or you can just Google it, How to Have Extraordinary Relationships, and it drops on Friday. So check it out. Really, really worth listening to. I found it very interesting to edit, and obviously the lady that's done it is anonymous. They're calling her Mary, but that's not a real name for obvious reasons.
Well,
okay. Russ and the gang are back on Friday. Any closing thoughts, Liz?
I was going to say, just on coercive control, we hear more and more about it, which is not necessarily a bad thing. It's because there needs to be more awareness of people who are stuck in these very awful relationships for whatever reason. It's mostly women, but not just women. There are men who are stuck in these relationships as well. And I think we remember, actually, we both live in Surrey. It was brought to the fore by a lady called Sally Challoner, who went to prison because she had enough and snapped and killed her husband. But then when the new laws and rules came out a few years ago, was able to leave prison and to have the life that she needed, supported by her children as well.
So all the understanding of this, I'm not making light of it, by the way, with the cushion throwing. It's a very serious subject. But yeah, it is serious, and there needs to be more information about it out there. So How to Have Extraordinary Relationships, Lucy Cavendish, give it a Google, and you can watch that on Friday. Okay, or listen to that on Friday.
It's Eurovision week, just to do a bit of light and shade.
Oh no, are you going this year to Eurovision?
No, I'm not. It's actually Basel in Switzerland, which is hosting this year. It's incredibly expensive. I've been for the last 3 years, but instead this year I'm hosting a house party at home, because when we went to look up, you can do it without spending loads of money, but when we went to look up how much it was for 2 people to share a hotel room for 3 nights, it was coming in at nearly £1,000, which quite honestly, we booked a holiday to Sunny Beach in Bulgaria for a week for about half the money. So we're doing that instead.
All right. Liz Salt, thank you very much indeed. Great to have you on the show.
And see you again, Neil. And have a good afternoon, everyone.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you, Liz. Thank you, everyone. And thank you for my
Don't you dare.
Thank you for my heckling. I'm just going to deal with this teenager. Good afternoon. Ow!